This is Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast, the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by the writer and the director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. Gentlemen.
Yes.
The Acolyte is no more.
No.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I wasn't a big fan of the series of the show, it is still sad and disappointing to see this happen to Star Wars.
Yeah, it's never a good thing when Star Wars isn't working.
Yeah.
It feels like the Willow all over again.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that this series didn't have the success expected and isn't being renewed isn't a reason for anyone to celebrate. I think it'll be good to step back and see if there are any lessons to be learned for the future of Star Wars. We'll do that today and more. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the Porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that Porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody listen to this.
Can't say Guardians of the Galaxy.
I was just about to say Guardians before you finish the question.
What's the thing you're most looking forward to doing at Disney World
To be honest,
this weekend?
I'm excited to try the new Splash Mountain.
That's crazy.
Really?
I mean,
that wasn't even on my
It's a new ride. I want to try the new.
I mean,
the
I'm
new thing.
excited for it.
What are you most looking forward to?
Well, Epcot's my place. Love Epcot.
It is.
I'm excited to actually try and watch the fireworks show. The new one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited for that because
we've
I love
skipped those a lot
Epcot.
lately.
Love just being in Epcot.
Well-
And so the longer we can be there, it's fine by me.
And the Disney Springs drone show. I want to see
I
that.
think try to
That's
muster
probably
that.
it.
Yeah, that
we're
one's
gonna
gonna be
we're gonna
fun.
find time to get to that.
That one's gonna be
They've
a ton
got
of fun.
10:45 in the evening showings.
Yeah.
If we need to do
when,
that,
when do
one
we
night.
get in on Thursday?
Well, that we get in at 9 something, but we
But
may
Orlando is crazy.
have, we may have to drive to Port St. Lucie to pick up Mom. I just found out. Anyway, welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why we are going to have one final discussion about the act.
Probably for like the rest of time.
Might be. Only this time we're going to be looking at how this situation can be avoided in the future. Yeah. So we're going to do that. Yeah.
Well, and we just want to thank you for listening to this
thank you.
podcast. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you faithful listeners. We are going to ask you though to subscribe on Substack.
Become a subby.
A subber?
A subber? A stacker?
I don't know. We've tried this. It
Submariner?
doesn't work. Yeah.
A submariner?
Yeah.
Isn't he a superhero?
Yes, that's Namor.
Namor.
Namor the Submariner.
So is he a villain? He's an anti-hero.
He's an anti-hero. Anyway, join us on Substack. Please subscribe. It's free. And once we hit our goal of 100 Submariners,
It's not it.
I'm coining it. We're going to go with that. Once we reach that goal, Dad is going to make a podcast series on the mythology.
Just for Substack.
Right. The Christian myth of the Bible. It's much more interesting. The Christian story is much more interesting than you think.
It was like all these boats perfectly aligned in a dock, like all these like yachts and boats and stuff. Like it was all beautiful, and then it was like me coming to Bible study, and then the next one was like after a hurricane hit that same dock, and all of the boats were like a jumbled mess. And
Me
they were all
leaving.
on top of each other, and he's like me after I bring up Nephilim, or this Bible study after bringing up Nephilim.
Yeah,
So-
it's wild.
It's going to be wild. But we're also going to be talking about the comics releasing in stores tomorrow, along with
We're gonna do that
what
today.
some of us have been reading.
We're going to figure it out. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be a ton of fun.
But enough talking about what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about what we're talking about.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then. Keep your secrets.
Your coming to us is as the footsteps of doom.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
Jump into this episode with some things that we're just excited about, things we want to talk about. Nate,
Yes.
I want you
as opposed to the other segments where we don't really want to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, no, we hate it.
Yeah.
No, I'm just, this is the general miscellaneous.
This is where we just basically
subject.
vomit out whatever works out.
Right.
Exactly. And this week we're excited about a couple things. First up, Alien Romulus. Woo! All right, let's do our typical letterbox rating, 1 to 5 stars with halves, like or no like. I want Dad to go
Why
first.
do you want me to go first?
Because you're going to be the wet blanket on the discussion.
I'm not going to be a wet blanket.
You're going to be
You're going to be the wet
Go ahead.
blanket on the discussion.
Go
So we're
ahead.
going to get it out of the way.
What are you going to give it a...
People are thinking here that I'm like one of those crazy people that are freaking out about the Alien Romulus, like against it, like negative toxic.
You
people. I'm not. I don't care about the Alien
Right.
franchise. I mean, I watched it. It was a very well done movie. I stayed awake for the entire thing.
Did you enjoy your time?
It made sense.
It was one of the movies
It was
of all time.
It was fine. It was. It was the movie that I went to that day.
So what's your rating?
I'll give it a 3.
Okay. With like or no like?
I mean, if you're going to do it from like a perspective of would I ever watch this movie again, like by choice, go out of my way to go do it, that being a like, I'd probably have to say not like, just because
Okay.
that's not my thing.
That's fair.
There can be some movies that I like that I wouldn't watch again.
Yeah. Huh?
So I'd put a like.
It's
just not your thing.
if I never saw that movie, my life would not be any different than if I saw that movie.
I mean, fair.
So
All right, Nate.
Okay. Well, I got a 4.5 and a like. I really like this movie. I am a fan of the Alien franchise.
You are.
I enjoy most of the movies. Most. Feels like every other movie is really good. It's crazy because I actually like figured that out. Prometheus, I really, really liked. Great movie. Covenant wasn't bad,
Wasn't great.
but it wasn't great. It was just a fine Alien movie. Alien, of course, fantastic, greatest of the series. I don't think you can top that. It did great. Aliens, no. I know it's super controversial and people think it's one of the greatest movies of all time. Yeah, it didn't do it for me. The dialogue kind of was really bad. Aliens was not the move. Alien 3, that's a yes. I enjoyed Alien. I enjoyed it.
You're
I
in the
thought it was
minority
good.
there.
I know I'm in the minority. A lot of people think it's the worst one. I thought it had a weird, fun tone, and it was setting up some great stuff, and the ending was good. Alien Resurrection was just god-awful garbage. That was a miserable time watching a movie. And then Romulus, I really, really, really enjoyed. It did some great stuff. In the movie, before the final 30 minutes, it was fantastic. You have the zero-gravity acid blood scene, which was...
We're going spoilers here. I
so
guess.
cool.
Oh,
That was in the
yeah.
trailer. That was cool. And then the ending 30 minutes was just
Wild.
mental, like absolutely crazy. Yes, this movie followed practically the same story beats as Alien. But when you're coming to legacy sequels and you're just updating it and bringing it for a new audience and being able to increase it with technology and everything that we have nowadays, they did a fantastic job. I liked all of the characters, probably the most likable characters in the entire series. Like
I did like Andy a lot.
I loved Andy. I loved Rain. I thought both of their dynamic was really good. I don't know. I thought it was just a really great movie. It was good.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun, but that's it.
I'd give it a 4, I think. 4 and a like. It was a really, like you said, it was a really, really well done movie. The effects were phenomenal. All the practical effects really shone through in that movie. It was some phenomenal performances by the actors. Yeah, I mean, it was just a very well executed Alien movie. If you're not into Alien movies, it's not going to be your cup of tea, and that's fine. But I think for what it was going for, it was awesome. And then, yeah, that last, 15, 20 minutes or whatever was just mental. So
I do think that this was to the Alien franchise what The Force Awakens was to
It
the
is.
Star
Yes,
Wars franchise.
absolutely.
Especially with
a
how much
lot of
money
the
it's making.
Same beats and story ideas and that type of thing, but done for a new generation to enter into the franchise, which is great. And if I liked these kinds of movies, I would have been thrilled with this movie, but it's just not my thing. So,
All right.
Lame.
Yeah. All right. Next up, something that we're all very excited for coming up is Rings of Power Season 2. Woo! And we are on the precipice.
the precipice.
And we're sadly not going to be able to watch it when it comes out because we're going to be in
We're
Disney.
seriously
Whose big idea was it for us to go to Disney World on the weekend that Rings of Power releases?
Wasn't it yours?
I was fully prepared to just pull it up on a laptop and watch it.
No.
You cannot disgrace this.
It's like watching HDMI to a TV.
We're not going to make mom sit there.
That's fair.
Also, I want to watch it on my TV with my cool backlights and stuff. Loving that backlight thing. It's so nice. But I think it was your idea, Dad.
I think it was my idea. No, it was Mom's idea.
But
honestly.
we're definitely going to have to find a time before Sam and I leave a day earlier now.
It's
for
just
our
a
trip,
few
like,
hours earlier, honestly.
More like 12 hours early.
You're confusing everybody. They have no idea what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Sam and I are going to Hans Zimmer live. I guess that's another thing we can
Duluth,
talk
Georgia.
about. What we're excited about in Duluth, Georgia. His opening performance in
September-
his North American tour.
September 6th.
September 6th. So we're heading to that. But we'll have to find times from the time we get back
On
from
the 2nd.
Disney on the 2nd, which is
A Monday.
a Monday. So we get back Labor Day.
Mm-hmm.
We could watch it that night.
We don't get back early enough, I don't think.
What time do we get back?
I don't think we get home until like 8 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Well, then we can watch it Tuesday night if I don't have a stupid Zoom class for my online college class.
Welcome to having responsibility.
We'll figure it out.
That's important enough for me to skip that class for sure. I'll watch
Talk a little bit about Rings of Power, though.
Yeah, I mean, from the trailers, which I still don't think I've watched the latest one.
It was good.
You know, it seems to be taking on a much darker tone than season one. Would y'all kind of agree?
I'd agree.
You've been going through season one, rewatching it. Y'all
Yep.
have seen the trailers. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's taking on a darker tone, more the tone we saw in Udun. I think that's the episode where everything kind of went to crap in the first season. Definitely taking on that kind of vibe, especially after listening to the score for season 2, at least what we've been given as of now. What we were given at the beginning of before season 1 was like, ooh, this is really good. I love this. And then we were given updated versions of the scores with all the really spoilery tracks afterwards. But from what I've heard so far of the season 2 score, which is the entire album that's been released, it does seem to be much darker. I mean, that Where the Shadows Lie theme
Is all throughout.
Insanely prevalent in almost all of the tracks that have something to do with the rings or something. So
I think it's going to have to stay that way throughout most of the middle seasons of this. The opening of the series itself is a very, other than what's going on with Galadriel, where she's convinced Sauron is still around and going to come and try to destroy everything. She's the only one that's convinced of that.
Right.
When you get to the elf world and all of this, they're just sort of like, everything is great. Everything is awesome. So it's going to be a lighter tone through that.
Yeah.
And then you get to the mines with Durin, and they're having the same type of experience, right? They're in a time of prosperity. It's a wonderful thing. Everything is good. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, we see other things that are happening with this. When you get to the end of season 1, things have gone very, very badly for everybody involved. And obviously Sauron has been exposed again as being Halbrand. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched this. If you haven't watched it, go watch it.
it's a great show.
It is.
Don't listen to anybody else that's
Absolutely. But I think this series is going to, the middle episodes, the middle seasons are going to be, and through the end of the series is going to be darker. I think you'll have some type of positive resolution at the end of the series whenever they close it out. But you'll still have some darkness there because we know what's going on with the ring. But I think my biggest question going into season 2, and I thought this when I first saw the original trailer, And then there's, I guess, more stuff has come out about it. But it's where's Bronwyn?
Yeah, I think we'd known that this was coming. The actress for Bronwyn, I'm going to try to pronounce his name. Nanzanin
Boniadi. I think she's Iranian.
Yeah. She had a quote. She said that I stepped away from acting in September of 2022 to focus solely on the hashtag Women Life Freedom uprising in Iran and to advocate for the people of my homeland who've been risking everything for freedom. Despite my passion for acting, I knew it would take a very special project to convince me to once again split my time between my day job and my calling as an activist. I think that's...
I had not heard that.
I hadn't either.
I had heard that she stepped away from acting, but I didn't know what was going on with it, like why and everything.
So fighting for equality and freedom in her home country, which is an extremely it's a dictatorship. It's a terrorist, terrorist regime. With it, for her to walk away from an unbelievably successful position with this, and I guess my understanding, and I hadn't thought about this, but I heard that you don't see her or what's the other Theo's her son.
Arondir.
You don't see them at all in the finale of season 1. They're not present.
Yeah, you don't.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
And I was at that point. She had. I think that they were already people were already talking about. She had stepped away from acting for this, and so, hey, understanding priorities. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. If you something has got to be bigger than your career and your acting, and having a purpose and following that purpose is great.
Yeah. Well, what do you think that means for, like you mentioned, Arondir and Theo, because they're heavily tied to Bronwyn in the story.
Yeah, I mean we know Arondir's in this season. I haven't heard about Theo yet or not. I'm sure he is. I think he's kind of been slightly important in that first season. So I'm sure we'll see some aspects to it. Wouldn't be surprised if they kill off Bronwyn due to her being an original character.
It'd have to be an off-screen thing.
It might have to be an off-screen, or they can pull off some tricks with it being not showing her face or something like that. Some things that go on. I know that some type of track is about forgiveness, and Arondir's theme plays, and Bronwyn and Arondir's theme plays a lot in that track, so maybe there's something to do with that. I don't know. It's going to be a bit interesting to see how it all works out, but...
And I'm trying to figure out how Theo fits into this in the first place, because he picks up what is the sword that he has?
Don't know what it's called.
It's some dark magic thing.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know what it's
with
called.
that. I mean, he's obviously, there's something to his character with it. I think he's going to have a big role in what happens in season 2 and beyond with what's happening in the Southlands with this. And so obviously Arondir is he features heavily in the trailers with this. So we're gonna see something very interesting happen with it.
I agree. What are you most looking forward to in season 2?
Elrond. Man, what a great character. Also,
you love him.
He's a great character. He was great in season 1. He just such a fun character, and it seems like he's going to be fighting a lot. Apparently, he's the leader of a giant battle, like Helm's Deep level battle in this season. I mean, the battle for Eregion, I think, is what it's going to be. I think it's the orcs are attacking the Forge is pretty much what we can assume.
Well, we know Elrond, he has to.
Yeah. So he's looking like he's going to be cool, fighting a lot of orcs. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'm sure Galadriel will show up alongside him, which would be awesome. That would be cool. Really cool to see the two of them fighting with each other. Would be great. So
I think the season is going to. I think it's well established. The season is going to focus in on the dwarves and them receiving their rings.
Oh, okay.
In this season, but I think I'm curious, Sam. Who's your favorite character in season 1? Do you remember? It's been a while since you watched it. I know.
Yeah, circle back to me on that one.
Okay, I'm. I loved everything that happened with the Stranger and the Harfoots with it, and watching it again the last few days. Nathan and I have been rewatching it. I love Poppy.
Poppy. Okay.
No, not Poppy.
Nori.
Not Poppy. Nori. That's right.
Poppy was great.
I get those two confused for some reason, their names. But yeah, definitely Nori. I love Nori because she is so anti-Hobbit in her personality, right?
Oh, yeah.
In The Hobbit, Bilbo doesn't want to go on this journey. Frodo doesn't want to leave the Shire. They just want to get back to the Shire. And Nori's the kind that's the exact opposite. She's everything that's good about the Hobbits, which is why I had such a concern about the stranger being a bad guy. I needed him to be Gandalf because that was how that came out. So that whole storyline, I'm curious to see what journey they go on and how that plays off with that. Who's your favorite character? Did you figure it out?
I'd probably have to say Durin.
Yeah.
He's great. He's super fun. But the whole series is great. There's a lot of great characters in this series.
Nathan, you said something while we were rewatching it, and we'll talk about this maybe when we get to our Acolyte conversation at the end, but at the second part or the bottom half of this. But you were saying that you were talking about the Eternals, and we were kind of with this. Why do you think that something like a longer form presentation, giving it more time to play out, worked for Rings of Power and could have worked for something like Eternals, but worked against, and we'll talk about this in the next, but worked against the Acolyte with some of the episodes being too long?
Yeah, when it comes to what I feel like Eternals should have been a Disney Plus TV series, specifically because they introduced like 15 characters almost, and none of them felt like they really got their worth. A couple of them felt like they got way more screen time and way more development than some of the others. Some of the others were just killed off. Just seemed like they were like not fleshed out, and so I didn't care about any majority of the Eternals. I did not care about, and the Eternals I did care about, I was kind of frustrated I cared about them because I wanted to learn more about everybody else. So I think that it would have worked better as a Disney Plus TV series because we see it in Rings of Power as they're allowing all of these stories to breathe. I mean, each episode is about hour 10 minutes.
So why does that work with the Rings of Power series? 8 episodes, longer episodes, and we felt different from that as we're talking about the Acolyte later in this episode. Why did we feel like that one was different? Did they what was different about the Acolyte with that?
Because it felt like in the Acolyte they're trying to drag it out to get it to meet a TV series length, a season length, and it didn't seem like it fit. I mean, we had main character wise
Osha, May, Soul,
Chimere. To an extent, we had about four characters, and it felt like May and Osha got a lot of screen time. Chimere didn't get nearly enough backstory built up for him. Soul got a lot of stuff, but felt like he was kind of treated poorly in that last episode. His ending was a bit unceremonious, and it just felt like it could have been a movie. We could have wrapped it up quicker, let us be able to not think about it as much, I guess, in that scenario. So
I'm just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably going to do it for what we're just excited about for this week. I think next, Nate, we got some new comics and what we're reading to talk about, right?
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
That man has no limits.
Detective Comics issue 1088, kind of nearing the end of this current run, I guess.
It's got Freeze on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, so ending the near end of this run before DC's All In kind of begins. Amazing Spider-Man issue 56, also kind of nearing the end of that run. Ultimate X-Men issue 6 and X-Men comic series set in the Ultimate Universe. I've heard it's good. I think I have the first couple issues, but I didn't get to follow it, which is sad. And Void Rivals issue 12, which marks the 1-year anniversary of the Energon universe.
Crazy.
Starting. Which
Is that the one you're reading?
No, just Transformers.
Oh,
We're on issue, 11? 10 of that one?
No idea
10,
anymore.
I think. Which means we're getting close to the 1-year anniversary for that series as well. And also, this one's crazy, but I'm probably going to pick it up. Aliens versus Avengers, issue 1. Sounds crazy. Sounds cool. I know that Alien and everything is owned by Marvel, owned by Disney. So they've been doing a lot of comic series for them recently, like a What If series they've been doing for Aliens a lot now. And so bringing in an Aliens versus Avengers is pretty cool, but kind of getting into what we're reading currently. Sam, have you been reading, any comics or anything comic book related?
Are you doing anything?
I haven't read any comics lately, but I have been doing a little bit of reading and preparing for a Marvel tabletop RPG game that I'm running with some buddies of mine. Our next session is tomorrow at the time of recording. I guess today at the time that you'd be listening to this. And I've been preparing for what our next campaign is going to be, so I've been reading that. It's some interesting stuff. Big old Kang storyline, multiverse, the works.
That sounds fun.
Wild.
Sounds like it's going to be crazy.
It's going to be a ton of fun.
That's good. So. Yeah, and currently I have been reading the normal Daredevil and Ultimate Spider-Man. Pretty much my rotation right now. I've been dabbling into Transformers and Ultimates right now, but Daredevil issue 12 is I think the most recent one, probably the greatest issue of Daredevil I've ever read.
Really?
Dang,
great stuff.
Without,
I don't know
how you can say spoiling. How can you say that without spoiling it for somebody that's going to end up reading it?
It's difficult because it is the culmination and beginning of a new, almost era of Daredevil. Which is crazy. A new era for a lot of the characters related to Daredevil as well.
Okay, so help me understand something, because this is going to tie into what I'm reading.
Okay,
so I'm reading Daredevil as well. I'm kind of set aside the Avengers stuff to catch up more on the Chip Zdarsky run, because Nathan guilted me on our last episode.
So good. And you've been enjoying it.
I have, absolutely. It's very different than reading the Avengers
self-contained,
stuff.
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm confused about something in that storyline.
I may be able to help.
Yeah, Daredevil's blind.
No. Daredevil, everybody knows that Matt Murdock was mayor.
Okay.
Right? I'm correct.
I guess so, yes. I did not read that run, so I cannot confirm.
But why is it that there seems to be this underlying thread throughout the series, these issues, that people that used to know Matt Murdock was Daredevil don't anymore.
That was
Elektra.
That was the Purple
Fisk.
Man.
I am confused as can be.
So the Purple Man was in the run of before that, apparently, because I did look this up. I was confused as well.
Okay.
I did look it up beforehand. The Purple Man is usually a villain for Jessica Jones. He's the main villain in the TV series for Jessica Jones, from my knowledge.
Isn't he played by the Doctor Who guy?
He is played by the Doctor Who guy. But he has psychological powers, if I know, telekinetic powers. And towards the end of the run before Chip Zdarsky, I'm pretty sure he makes everybody forget that Matt Murdock was Daredevil.
So Spider-Man,
basically,
No Way Home.
Yeah, it feels very similar to the end of No Way Home.
Very similar. It's pretty much the same thing. Not that Matt
not
Murdock,
for the same reasons.
Not that Matt Murdock doesn't exist, but that Matt Murdock isn't Daredevil. I don't know why he made him forget that, or why. I don't know how we got to that point. It's been a long time since I've researched that, but that's pretty much.
That would have been a much better spell in No Way Home.
Didn't they try to do that?
They did. They tried to make everyone forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
That created issues.
That's when all the enemies showed up. This is the main MacGuffin. This is the MacGuffin of that movie.
Well, it created issues because Peter was being a doofus and said things wrong. And
got the wrong people forgetting this.
Yeah, so
that's right. I remember that now.
Yeah, and Matt didn't care who forgot or not, because Matt sacrifices for the greater good. So
very, I think one of my favorite. I don't think we talked about this one in the last episode. I don't think I'd read it yet, but one of my favorite scenes I think I've ever read in a comic book was in the opening of one of these issues, where Reed
Richards
is playing chess with Matt. Knows Matt's Daredevil, though, right?
Right.
Yeah. and they're having a discussion about whether or not there can be a God. And it's the thing that I loved about it was that Reed is Reed, right? So he doesn't believe that. He doesn't.
He's a
believe
man
that
of
there's
science,
God, right? But in the course of the conversation, was willing to concede that the concept of there being a God, the idea of there being a God, does not contradict science. That it's possible,
right?
It fits, right? He doesn't believe it, but he's open to the idea. He becomes very agnostic in the way that he describes this, open to the idea that there could be a creator God. And if that's if you believe that doesn't make you unintelligent or anything like that. I thought and it was just a really, really well written. And all of these, I'm struggling with Fisk a little bit in the arc right now because he's not as powerful. He's not as strong, but that's part of the story.
It is
in this.
You'll find him to be the Fisk towards the end.
Well, he does some stuff that's all right. I mean, you get glimpses of him being the Fisk. There was some like Daredevil car door stuff going on in a bathroom.
Oh yeah, that's right.
In this one, but in the end, it's been fun to switch from the Avengers, which was big, multiverse shattering type stuff, to back to a Daredevil story that is the only thing that is being impacted is Hell's Kitchen.
Right.
Well, and what's funny is that kind of reminds me of the game that we're going to be running for,
your
that
RPG,
I'm going to be running with the guys. Is it starts off with you're like barely able to defend a block of a neighborhood, and then it moves to those multiverse shattering events and stuff. So I just think it's cool that Marvel allows for those very different kinds of stories to be told.
Right. Yeah, it's been good. It's definitely worth reading. It's been a lot of fun.
How many issues are you into it?
I think I'm like of the second arc, whatever it is.
Okay.
I think I'm in like the seventh. I think I'm in. I don't remember what issue I'm on.
Okay. You're getting to the good stuff though.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been
halfway through the first run is where it starts.
He's at the point now where he's kind of trying to keep telling Foggy that he's not Daredevil anymore, and I'm like, and Foggy's basically saying, well, you are. You're doing all the Daredevil stuff. You're acting like Daredevil,
right?
And so I'm trying to figure out what Matt's trying to accomplish with that.
Right, but it's really good. Daredevil issue 12 by Saladin Ahmed was fantastic. Great issue.
Oh, that's
what he's reading.
Yeah, I told Sam the spoilers, and
why would you do that?
Because he's not going to read it.
He doesn't. You don't know how to read yet.
No.
What's reading?
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, that's the comic books this week that are coming out. Please check your local comic
tomorrow,
store. Or
they'll come out tomorrow.
Yes, they come out tomorrow. Check your local comic store, or not local like me, an hour away, to pick up your comics. And make sure that you get the ones that you're wanting to read. Highly recommend Aliens vs. Avengers if you're an Alien fan. It's going to be fun seeing a Xenomorph fight Hulk.
That's going to be cool.
It's going to be crazy, but it's pretty much what comics are created for, doing crazy things. But yeah, Dad, what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about what went wrong with the Acolyte and how we can learn lessons from it for the future of Star Wars. And I'm going to ask a question that it makes me really uncomfortable to ask at the end of it.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
That it actually hasn't been confirmed by.
It's pretty much been confirmed.
Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney yet.
Yeah, but it's all been.
It's not been denied either. Yeah. So
exactly.
Pretty well accepted that there will be no season 2 of The Acolyte. I'm curious, before we get into kind of what I'm calling the autopsy, which I thought was funny because of all the people that died. But anyway, before we autopsy The Acolyte, thoughts on the fact that they're not bringing back a season 2. I'm curious, Sam, are you surprised by that?
No, I'm not. It just did not have enough of a positive fan reaction for them to justify making a new season. It'd be like the I don't know, the only thing I can think of is the Morbius effect, where like everybody was like, oh, it's the best movie ever, so they're like, oh, then people like it, let's throw it back in the theaters, and then it flopped again, right? I mean, it was just like a double embarrassment for the studio, and I'm worried that might be what would happen if Disney tried to do this again with the Acolyte, because even if season 2 completely took a 180, fixed all of the concerns and complaints that everyone had, and it was a fantastic series, it would still be sullied by the reputation that was put forth from the first season. So I just don't think they can, from a business standpoint, in good conscience, make a season 2 of this series.
Nathan, what about you? Surprised by this?
Not really surprised. I mean, from the beginning, it kind of felt like this was an experiment more than anything, and obviously kind of became a failed experiment. They wanted to test the waters with the High Republic show and didn't even really bring in the High Republic stuff.
Right.
It just felt like they were really trying to bring something into a more general casual TV show vibe.
Yeah.
As opposed to what we've gotten before.
Yeah, we'll
some
talk
of the
about
Star
that
Wars
for
stuff.
sure.
Well,
so that's what it feels like. It felt like an experiment. It felt like a failed one, and they can cut ties when they want to because they're Disney and nobody's going to stop them. So,
well, it's a business, right?
Right.
And so the Nielsen ratings numbers were released, and then the next day this
I don't
comes
know
out.
what that is.
Nielsen's
It's the TV streaming
ratings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
like how many people watched what?
Oh, okay.
And it came in where it, after the third episode, the numbers just
Plummeted.
They weren't over the top on the first 3 episodes. They were pretty good. They plummeted.
Which episode was the third one? I can't remember.
Isn't
That's a flashback episode?
That's the first flashback episode. That's
kind of understandable.
That when we all started going, what just happened?
Yeah.
With this, and the numbers just tanked after that. They rose up for the finale, not to the levels that they had been,
right,
but the numbers just weren't there. Now, before we kind of dive into some of the other conversation with this, I'm curious. One argument that I've heard from the Renew the Acolyte, movement, which again, I have no problem with people trying to get this thing renewed.
They did it with Rebels.
They did it with Clone Wars, right?
And it worked.
The thing that they're saying, and there's validity to this. Season 1 of the Clone Wars was largely considered a lot more misses than hits.
That's fair.
Overall, it didn't get the fan reaction and that kind of thing, and some say the same about Rebels, which is our show, right? Mm-hmm. The argument that's being made is that it takes a show like this. You have to give it a second or third season sometimes for things to really, really start to develop and for it to grow. I'm curious.
Okay.
Is there validity to that?
There's one thing for fan reactions to be not overwhelmingly positive, and then there's another thing for fan reactions to be largely, if not mostly, negative towards the show, the first season. I don't think Clone Wars or Rebels had a large group of people who were outspoken against the series.
There was though. I mean, that was the stuff that was where things turned so ugly against Ashley Eckstein, and there was a lot of real negativity to the Clone Wars movie and bringing in Ahsoka. Some of the same arguments. It breaks canon. Anakin should never had a Padawan. Why does he have a Padawan now? All of these types of things are going on. Some of the same things. And I think you have to be honest about it. Nathan, what do you think? Do you think that there's something to be said about an argument about letting it play out?
There's validity. There is validity to it. It checks out. But also, let's just be honest. When Clone Wars and Rebels were coming out, very different times in the world of entertainment.
That's true.
Streaming services didn't exist. Businesses like that weren't relying on streaming numbers to be so important. Viewership wasn't as important. When it comes to Clone Wars and Rebels, though, I think they were getting great viewership for their shows. For animated children's TV, which at that time it pretty much was. And Cartoon Network and Disney Channel is originally what Rebels and Clone Wars were on. Getting great numbers. They were getting great viewership. A lot of people talked about it. And you didn't have social media. So if a lot of people that you were around were talking about it, then you know that it was popular. There's no doubt about that. And I knew that Sam and I tried to catch Clone Wars a few times when it was on air. So they were being watched. Yes, people might have had problems with it, but
I think the target audience was ultimately children, and children were tuning in and enjoying it.
And target audience for Acolyte was not children. Let's just be honest here. That wasn't the vibe that they were going for. It's a live action.
If anything, it was trying to be more, I don't know, for lack of a better term, gritty, mature. Yeah,
it was more of a mature audience that it was going for. And when you bring that in, and you have some people that are just not as satisfied with it, which is fair. It happens. And so I think that there's validity to the argument, but also people need to realize these are very different times we live in. It was a very different show. You cannot really compare Clone Wars and Rebels to The Acolyte. They're under the same banner, but that's pretty much where the comparisons can stop. And I think that that's just something people need to really understand.
Why do you think, if you were to try to summarize why The Acolyte didn't work and was then ultimately canceled, I'll start with you, Nate. If you were trying to kind of like summarize that in one sentence, one statement, what would you say is if you were to nail it down to one thing, what would that be?
I genuinely would say production. That goes from writing to sets to acting to directing to pretty much a lot of the ings that go behind this TV show.
I think a good way to summarize what you're saying and what I'm thinking is I think the series tried to bite off more than it could chew.
I don't even know if it tried to do that. I mean, you have Leslie Headland, one of the greatest television show directors of all time, heading up this show. With the budget of a Disney Star Wars TV series, you have all of the resources to fully realize this potential. I just think that the quality of creativity wasn't there.
There's an execution.
It was an execution error. You lay this down on paper, and it sounds interesting.
We were all on board going into this.
And that happens a lot. It sometimes happens where the concept's really interesting for a movie or a TV show, and you watch it, and you're like, oh, that was pretty darn disappointing. There are many movies where that has happened before that we've seen. I mean, you can even bring in Into the Woods if we're talking about other Disney stuff.
Or Eternals.
Yeah. I mean, you have those movies.
Yeah, we were excited going into Eternals.
I mean, we were doing the research going up to it, learning about the backstory with Jack Kirby, all these things. Like, super excited to see how they were going to interpret and adapt that to the movie. And we walked out sorely disappointed.
And that movie also had to deal with execution. I think that pretty much that's just the issue with this TV series was the production, the execution of just the lackluster quality. And then you compare it to some of the things we've gotten recently. I mean, you have Godzilla -1, The Creator, Alien, Romulus. You have all of these pretty low budget. I mean, lower budget than Robert Downey Jr.'s salary for Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah.
Like, when entire budget for a movie is under that and is better executed.
I think that's more of a condemnation of his salary for that.
It is.
It is.
But you gotta. There's something that has to be done different. You have the resources, and it's
been shown that this can be done well, and
it shows that you can do it well. I mean, Leslie Headland had one of the greatest.
Yeah, let's talk about that because it's interesting. You think about Leslie Headland and she Russian Doll and some of those types of things. A very, very widely regarded and critically acclaimed series.
Yes.
Right? We haven't watched it because it's got some content in it that just wouldn't be on our radar. We wouldn't want to be a part of. But still, it was recognized as being.
We can appreciate.
Absolutely, it was recognized as being fantastic. Why? I was having a conversation with somebody last week, and they asked me if I watched The Acolyte, and because they found out about our podcast, and so they wanted like what they thought was a informed position on this, which is anything but informed. But anyway, I tried to describe it this way. You know, you've got Star Wars needs to be cinematic, right? Star Wars works best when it's big.
Agreed.
Right. And so you have shows like, especially a Mandalorian, especially season 1. You have Andor, Ahsoka, and those types of things, which always feel big. They feel epic. The stories feel big. All of that. John Favreau, Tony Gilroy are movie guys. They're not TV guys.
Right.
I mean, I don't know of anything either of the two of them have done that have been driven by TV, like primarily
think
TV.
Of anything
before Mandalorian and Andor, right? So they're taking a big screen
mentality,
epic sensibility and putting it in the small screen.
Mm-hmm.
You have Leslie Headland, who is a TV person, and there's nothing.
Right.
I love some of that, stuff like that that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But she's trying to take epic stories and put them on the small screen, and she's doing it with TV series sensibilities.
Mm.
And I just don't think Star Wars works small, and it came across small. It felt like CW.
I understand where you're coming from,
and I don't think
agree.
I'm not criticizing Leslie Headland.
I think that you're right. Star Wars does need to be cinematic, but doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't need to be small. Rebels is pretty small,
but that's different. It's animation.
Understandable,
differently.
But if
that was something that I've wanted to say. Would this series? I've heard other people ask this question. I've been asking it since the third episode. Would this series do better as animation?
Yes. I think so. Because I was about to say, and then you brought up that qualifier of it being animation. Clone Wars is widely considered some of the best Star Wars out there. And it was headed up by Dave Filoni, who got his start on Avatar: The Last Airbender, a TV show. So he has a TV mindset going into it.
He was mentored by George Lucas. And
still, that we don't know who mentored Leslie Headland or what advice she got from someone maybe on the big screen side of things. But you're right. That's animation. And it's a very different medium where smaller stories, where less happens, is much more common. Filler episodes, if you want to call them that. We use that term very carefully because we don't always think that there's the Purgles are a great example of what we would think is a filler episode, and then that doesn't happen, right? So you got to be careful throwing around that term. But animation is much more used. That medium is much more used to having episodes where it's smaller scale, I guess is a way to put it.
I think that if The Acolyte was kind of in the same vein and felt similar to Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, it would have been amazing.
Oh.
Because Tartakovsky's Clone Wars does a lot of weird things. It's a weird
Star Wars animation has
Do you think they ever
things.
Bring Tartakovsky back in for something?
No. I love that. But I think he's busy with his own stuff right now.
Dang.
But I do think that Tartakovsky's Clone Wars is a great example to smaller scale, weird, cool animation. And I think The Acolyte would have lended itself better to an animation in that vein than more of a mainline stream. You even bring Visions into the equation.
Oh, yeah.
Make something like The Acolyte that's like Visions. Make a full-blown Star Wars anime. Full season Star Wars anime. Acolyte fits that bill very well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Put it into that.
I think that would have been fantastic.
You bring in the anime fans, which is fine. Love that they love anime. And then you bring in Star Wars fans and you have them love something that's weird and crazy and has a strange story, but it's something you can get behind because it doesn't feel like this is something that is so insanely important for Star Wars that it had to be in live action.
I like how you bring up it should have been in an anime format for two reasons. One, it's been shown that Star Wars fans like the anime medium. Visions seasons 1 and 2 did phenomenal. But I think if you made this series starting off as an anime, it immediately tells every viewer, hey, this is different.
Yes.
You literally have not seen anything like this in Star Wars before except Visions, and that's an anthology series that's not canon. This is the first canon anime. You can't compare it to Clone Wars anymore. You can't compare it to Rebels. It's its own thing now.
And it also plays towards the Chimera, OSHA stuff, the relationship. That's prevalent in anime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? The
flip-flopping of
the characters would have worked in anime.
Yeah, the darker, more gray, ambiguous tone fits that medium well. Plus, you could have, let's just be honest.
And the production would have been less.
Would have been
and
less.
And they could have had more time to tell stories because the production doesn't cost so much.
I think
I want to say something. I think that Disney execs screwed them on this.
Yeah.
It's come out through some writers. Specifically, we've talked about episodes 3 and episodes
7?
7, which were Choice and Destiny.
Oh, the flashbacks.
Okay,
rough.
No. Maybe not Choice and Destiny. What were the ones? 4 and 5 were those two? Light and Dark, Day and Night. Those two. Those two. That was specifically.
Day was not good.
Night was great.
But Day got great at the end,
right?
And then led into Night, which was really good, right? The writer of that came out and said
which?
Of both. I think they wrote both. They were like, no, we were told we needed to make that one episode.
One episode?
We needed to make that we needed to make Day its own episode and Night its own episode and drag it out. And we don't know. I guess we had to get a certain number of episodes in. Is what I've heard people say.
I feel like Disney.
I think Disney screwed this thing up.
I think
I'm not putting this on just on writers and all of this. I think Disney screwed this up and made what could have been a phenomenal series that a lot of people do think is a phenomenal series. That they absolutely love it. They love the characters. They have the back lore to the High Republic stuff that the average fan doesn't. And they love the story because they know that. All of those things, I think Disney messed this thing up from start to finish with this. I think they overhyped it.
Yep.
And I think that hurt it as well. My biggest concern coming out of the Acolyte and thinking back to Book of Boba Fett, thinking back to lower numbers for other things that have happened, how long it's been since we've had a Star Wars feature film, all of this. I guess my question that I'm afraid to ask, but I'm going to ask it and we can spend a couple minutes talking about it. Has Star Wars moved past being a big mega franchise? Has it run its course as a mega franchise?
I don't. And I think what it needs to do is it needs to have a major switch up, change I don't know what the word is, but it's falling into the trap of too much content. It needs to dial back, which feels weird because I'm saying that in order for me to really want Star Wars, I want less Star Wars. But I think the problem is it's their business. Disney's a business. They're wanting to make money. How do you make money? You consistently release products, new products, right? Especially in today's culture where everybody wants a new thing every other week.
Yeah.
I mean, friggin' Roosevelt's, the lime, they're doing a new drop every week. I feel
twice
like.
a week.
Twice a week. Yep, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays.
It's crazy, right? Because that's the culture we live in. And I think that Star Wars is just not built for that. It needs, I'm almost willing to say, full stop on Disney Plus series. Just stop them for a while. And then go back to the event movie mindset. And don't go into the Marvel trap of like 4 movies a year or something crazy. 1, maybe 2 a year. Bring it back. I think that means that that Star Wars will become less of a moneymaker for Disney. But if they want Star Wars to be successful, I think they need to go back to what made it magical in the first place. Movies every few years. Something to look forward to. And then in the meantime, Star Wars fans will do what Star Wars fans do best. They'll theorize. They'll do fan projects.
They could do the books. They could do the comics.
They
could do animated stuff again.
And I'm fine with that too. But I think you need to just step back a minute and not release so much and focus on quality.
Story first.
Yeah.
I don't think it's run its course as a blockbuster franchise. I can use this. I've been seeing this dialogue go around social medias for the past few days, and referencing Alien and Alien Romulus. Disney themselves, Alien Romulus was not a project they were looking forward to. Disney was considering putting it on the chopping block and just moving it to Hulu till basically the few weeks before it came out in the theaters.
How's it done in the box office?
It has made $200 million worldwide on an $80 million budget.
Okay.
That's phenomenal.
It's been a huge success.
Especially for an R-rated horror film like that.
And Disney said before this movie came out, they thought that Alien was a dying franchise. Which, I mean, you look at the numbers, after Covenant, Prometheus is probably its highest moneymaker, but Covenant wasn't, and you can consider Alien to be a dying franchise, and they were taking a risk on putting it in the theaters, and that risk has been a great risk. It was very well calculated, and it wasn't Disney, it was the directors and the crew behind Alien Romulus that had the passion behind the project to keep it in theaters.
But that's not to say that.
And I'm not saying, and I was not saying that any type of passion was not put into any of those projects. I'm saying that Alien Romulus has shown Disney that these people love what they're doing, and they pretty much know better when it comes to these things, like Jon Favreau, like Dave Filoni taking that huge risk for Rebels, making something that a lot of people weren't really super excited about, continuing making something that after season 1, didn't get critically received super well, turning into one of the highest rated animated television shows of all time, not let alone Star Wars. So I think that there's a lot behind that.
And you were talking to me, I think it was just last night, Nate, that Disney execs were coming to, who's the director of
Fade Alvarez,
saying, hey, you got to cut spoilers if you haven't seen Romulus.
You got to cut the end. Just call it. Cut the end.
Yeah.
The big moment at the end.
Yeah, cut the big thing at the end, which if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, right? It was the kind of the moment of the movie that pushed it over the edge for me that I loved it, right? Execs were coming to Fade and saying, hey, you got to get rid of this.
And we're too worried about this.
And Fade was like, I'm going to keep it in there even more now because you said that, right? So I think it is kind of going back to what you said, Dad. I don't know if this is what happened with Acolyte, but from what I've heard, it sounds like it could be the case. I think execs are coming in being, hey, they have their corporate mindset with things, not their artistic passion project mindset. They're coming into it from a corporate mindset, saying, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. And while the creators are like, no, this is not what I have in mind. And fortunately, Fade Alvarez stuck to his guns, and I think it paid off.
It did.
But that, I guess, maybe the Acolyte crew didn't have that choice to be able to stand up.
You look at it from the other side of the spectrum, and you look at DC Studios right now, and you see the people that don't let any of the studio execs get in the way. If you know James Gunn, he's not going to let anybody tell him no, because he has a lot of passion for these stories, and he's decided he's taking control. And from what we're seeing, we don't know the quality right now, but from what we've seen, his love is showing through every single set photo or documentary about Christopher Reeves that's coming out. I have never seen him post more about anything than about this documentary and about how much he loves it. And that is a side of letting people's creativity really just shine, loving that.
Yeah.
And same with Matt Reeves and how much he's been a huge supporter and letting Matt Reeves do what he does for the Batman Part 2. I mean, we were supposed to...
Even if it doesn't fit into the DCU, you do you.
You do you. Don't care how long it takes for you to get it down exactly how you want it. Take your time. Do what you need to do. Make it as good as that original movie. And that's all I care about. The writer for the Batman says that Matt Reeves is loving what he's working on. He is a genius with this second movie, and he's taking his time, which is fine by me. Do that. We aren't seeing that at Disney right now. You're not seeing it with Marvel right now. You're struggling to see a lot of it with some of the Disney projects that are going on because it just feels like they're a factory.
We haven't done this in a long time, but I think it's time for us to get back to doing it. Here's a little bit of a dad moment.
I am your father.
So I recently saw a video of some 11 or 12-year-old girl practicing soccer with her team. She was absolutely dreadful at soccer. I mean, she couldn't kick the ball. She couldn't dribble it. She looked like a disaster out there. Like, you felt sorry for her when she was doing it. And when the drill stopped for a break, this girl stepped away from the rest of the team into an open area of the field and then did this absolutely breathtaking tumbling routine on the grass, just going nuts with it. And as you watch it, you're starting to think her problem wasn't her athleticism. Her problem wasn't who she is and what she is. She was not in her gifting. She was not given the opportunity.
Using her strengths.
She wasn't using her strength. You had a strength fighter thing you had to do today for school. That's so funny. No, but she wasn't. She didn't find her fit.
It's the whole, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree its whole life, it's never going to amount to anything.
Absolutely. I think that they screwed Leslie Headland and the team of the Acolyte on this thing. I think that they had some interesting ideas that they were trying to explore. They weren't given the opportunity to do it. I think that Star Wars has to stay big. I think that you have to get better as an as a company, Lucasfilm, Star Wars, Disney. They have to get better about the choices that they're making when it comes to release schedule, the types of stories they want to tell, the resources they're giving these people, and the freedom to do it. And they got scared after The Last Jedi.
Yep.
They got scared.
That's why they went back to JJ.
And they ran home to a formulaic approach to Star Wars. And while The Mandalorian and some things have done amazing and we've loved it, they better get back to letting the Rian Johnsons of this world start making Star Wars again. And I think because that's what George Lucas did in the 70s. He bucked the system. He fought 20th Century Fox the whole time. And he made the stories he wanted to tell looking the way that he wanted them to look. And he can't.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason why, while niche, Visions has done so well. Because that's literally all that show is. It's not tied down by canon. So these different studios are able to just go in and tell the story they want to tell. And some amazing stories in a very short time period. Some of the greatest
Star Wars stuff we've gotten recently
has come from that, all because creators are able to create.
Anything else?
Yeah, so there is a new Marvel's Guide for Dummies coming out, which is just 85 years of comic lore condensed into one book.
I've heard this.
I want to pick this up.
People are excited about it.
People are excited. Some people are a little iffy, like you can't condense 85 years of storylines into one book, which I understand. If you're looking at it from DC, if you're looking at it from Marvel, you can do that. It's fine. They're pretty good with that. DC, it's rough because DC has had so many different resets, crises. And they've done their own Ultimate History encyclopedias, but that's just pretty much like, here, let me update you on what is going on currently with these characters. But it's going to be a ton of fun to see a guide for dummies. I'll probably pick it up, read it, and see what's going on.
Yeah, Star Wars Outlaws is close to coming out, getting some reviews.
3 days.
I have seen
very mixed.
I've seen reviews where everybody's kind of like, it's fun, or I've seen things where it's like, it's horrible. Personally, I haven't really seen anything in it to get me all that excited about it, but I still hope it does well.
I'm seeing a Metacritic critic score of 77, which is
for Metacritic, that's solid. Yeah,
is crazy for a video game. A Star Wars one recently, like that's pretty good. I've heard it's pretty much Uncharted for Star Wars.
That would be fun.
Which is a fun aspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I've got a new podcast I'm listening to.
Oh?
And it's an audio drama podcast. And it's made by the production company that made like Law and Order.
Dick Wolf.
All of those. Dick Wolf, called Dark Woods. And it's been actually pretty good.
It's good.
So,
cool.
If you want to check out something else, do that. I think that's going to pretty much do it for this week. Make sure you're following us on Substack. We'd love
become
to
a subby
engage with you
or
on that.
Submariner.
We will not have an episode come out next week because,
We
as we
Disney
talked
World.
about, we're not going to worry about recording an episode when we get back from Disney World that day and planning one out and all that other stuff. We'll come back on the 10th.
Probably
the 10th will be the next episode.
talk.
September 10th. Will be the next episode. I think that's going to do it for this week. Anything else you guys would like to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.
Yep, yep.